Good afternoon and a warm welcome to Wales Airshow at Home, brought to you in association with Ron Skinner and Son. Today we're presenting a digital celebration of the Wales Airshow. You can sit back and enjoy this from the comfort of your own home. And we'll be looking back at the spectacular air displays and ground activities that have taken place at past Wales Airshows. In addition, there will be competitions and fun games for the whole family throughout the entire day. Now, we've been lucky enough to secure a number of pilots to answer your questions, and I'd now like to welcome, first up, very much with a local flavour, the boss of Tîm Raven, Sid Shirley. Well, Sid, it's a great pleasure to have you on the show here today, and I'm one of many people that's a great fan of the display that you've put together. It's simply got better and better as the years have gone by, and I think you're only just in your 6th year now, so a tremendous achievement. But what made you choose the aircraft that you fly as a team?
It comes down to cost, really. So the other guys in the team, pretty much all of them, 3 of them, used to display Yak 52s, and they're expensive aircraft to run for the performance and everything. And then one year, Steve, who's number 2, bought an RB4, and I think the quote was, "These things are the future, and they're cheaper to run, they're economical, they're fast, high performance." So we switched to those, really. But by the time we formed the team, he'd upgraded to an RB8. So.
Effectively, you're a team of self-financing individual pilots who you have brought together to turn it into a display team. Is that right?
Well, I can't take all the credit for it. It's actually the brainchild of Steve Lloyd and Barry Gwyneth, numbers 2 and 3, who brought the team from. They came from Team Osprey, Yak 52s, and then they were originally going to form a 4-ship with Gerald Williams and Mark Southern from Team Viper, who flew Strike Masters and Hunters. And then a career change in 2014 meant that I could join the team with the availability of funding to buy an aeroplane. So I volunteered to become the leader. So not really my team, but yeah, they're at the beginning.
It's a collective, because I'm coming on next. Now, you're very much the local team for the Wales Airshow. You've got the valleys running through your veins in there. Now, this must be like herding cats, because you've got some pretty strong characters, and you've got one seriously big rugger player there as well, haven't you? Just quickly run us through the team that you work with.
Okay, the team running kind of in numbers. Number 2 is Steve Lloyd, who's kind of the mechanic, the brainchild. He's built at least 2 of the aircraft now, including mine. Number 3 is Barry Gwyneth, who is our kind of elderly gent, if you like. And number 4 is Gerald Williams, who's the ex-rugby player that you speak of. And number 5 is Mark Southern.
Tremendous. I mean, you did explain a little bit earlier about how you all came together. How much effort and work is put in to turning all that disparate collection of aviation experience and people who've flown lots of other aircraft into forming the Raven display? How does that all come together?
Well, clearly, I think, as you've alluded to, George, it's a lot of work. It doesn't happen by accident. So not only do we have the kind of the disparate personalities, we all have different jobs. We don't all live in the same place. Although 4 of us are South Wales, I'm kind of Cardiff, and some of the others are more Swansea. Steve's kind of more into the valleys, but Mark's actually, he lives just outside Manchester, so his aircraft's based in Slate. So bringing all of that together for a consolidated weekend of proper training before the season is hard work. Year 1 was, in fact, the first 18 months was all privately funded. So all the fuel, the smoke oil, the modifications we had to do, all of that was self-funded. We can charge for air shows now, so it is self-perpetuating. But as you say, we are an amateur team, if you like. And as such, we're a non-profit organisation, so we don't make money out of this. We purely pour the money back into the aircraft and the team. So it is a lot of work. It's just purely down to logistics. But then there's the actual airshow side, the displaying, which takes a lot of concentration and a lot of effort. And we put a lot of effort into just doing what we do very, very well. And we try not to change the routine too much every year, but we put in a couple of subtle changes as we go. We don't want to make it overly complex for the sake of being complex.
Tremendous, and you don't, but it is very, very nice to watch, and it's also a very tight display. Now, we might come back to that a little bit later, but first of all, you've heard those magic words on the air. Tîm Raven, clear display, you're running in down the display line. What does it feel like to be at the Wells Airshow?
When I first started displaying, I'll be honest, I've never shaken more in an aeroplane in my entire life. 2014, my first display at Throckmorton was the scariest thing I've ever done, apart from taking on a grizzly bear in hand-to-hand combat, I'll be honest. And I still get those nerves, not to that extent, but I do get that kind of excited tension and nerves running in. And I think if I didn't get that, I'd probably stop doing it, because I think you're getting a bit overconfident. So as I'm running in, particularly for Wales Airshow, which, as you say, is our home display, I'm thinking I want to put on a good show for this, because there's a lot of people down there who know us. They know we're the home team. You know, we're from just literally the other side of the bay, where it's about a 30-second flight time from Swansea Airport, where we're based. So I get very nervous, because I always want to put on a good show, but we particularly want to put on a good show for the home crowd. So I'm thinking about, you know, all the energy. Have I got the energy? Where's my position? Where's the wind? Can I see crowd center? Stuff like that. Can I make all my minimums in order to complete the first maneuver? So yeah, I get nervous. Yeah.
And all of that for me sums up that you are definitely not amateurs. You are thoroughbred professionals, and you care about detail, and that's what makes it. It is that attention to detail, and it really comes through your display. Now we're going to take a little short break, because luckily a lot of people have been tweeting in or Facebooking into the team and asking us a lot of questions. So here's a couple for you, Sid. This is from Georgia Moss. She's only aged 8. She's from Swansea, and she wants to know, where did the name Tîm Raven come from?
That's a good question. Typically, because I've been flying with 3 of the 4 other guys now since 2003. And whenever we used to fly together and fly formation, we always used to use birds of prey names like osprey, kestrel, stuff like that. And as you've alluded to, the aircraft are called vans RVs. So they're RV8s. So all we did was put some vowels and another letter in RV and came up with Raven. So Brilliant. Kind of following the bird theme, but a play on the R and the V of the aircraft.
Yeah, well, that's pretty. Sid, we got a great question now from Olivia and Owen Parkhouse from Pontlou. Let's hear what their question is.
Tîm Raven, how close do your planes get when they're at their closest during your display?
So we fly a number of references off the other aircraft, which gives us our consistent spacing. And I guess at the wingtips, we're kind of about sort of 8 feet apart at the wingtips. Probably about 25 feet between pilots, but wingtips kind of 8 feet.
That's close. And I'm going to ask a little supplementary here. That's okay when the weather's nice and smooth. What must it be like when there's a gale force wind blowing up the channel?
Yeah, so they are, in the true definition of the phrase, light aircraft, very light. So we display a very kind of light fuel weights, and the aircraft are probably just over half a ton. They do get affected by the wind quite a lot. So I guess what you do then, we don't move out or anything. We stay at the same separation. It's just we all have to work a little bit harder, particularly the wingmen, numbers 2 to 5. So although they'll be bumped around, what we're hoping is that if we're in close, we'll go through the same piece of turbulence together and bump roughly together in the same direction.
I think we better stop there before anything happens. Now, look, Rita Reese from Locker, she wants to know what other aircraft you've flown and what is your favourite aircraft?
Yeah, good questions. I think, as maybe a lot of our fans might know, I'm part-time Air Force at the moment, but I've done 30 years in the RAF as a pilot. So in my kind of civil career and my military career, I've flown a lot of aircraft. Operationally, in the RAF, I flew Tornado F3 and the Hawk. And more latterly, I'm a tutor, grog tutor flying instructor. And my role before this one was the new aircraft, the Grob 120 turboprop prefect. So I've flown that. In the civilian world, I've done the usual Cessnas, Pipers, Robins, Extra 300, Yak 52, and the RVs, RV4 and the 8 I fly now. On top of that, in my military career, I have flown in other aircraft. So I've also flown in a F5 Freedom Fighter, F-16 Fighting Falcon, and the F-18 Hornet, but never
Oh, wow. Well, that's a fantastic collection to have been in. Now, we're talking a lot of speed there. And very often it's easier. It's sometimes easier to handle an aircraft at higher speed than slower speed. Now, I don't fly the RVs, you do. And Gareth Weston, he's put another question in. He's an avid Wales Airshow Facebook fan. And he wants to know, what speeds are you actually doing when you do those maneuvers that look like near misses?
The near misses one. So typically we're flying about, as we enter any aerobatic maneuver, probably doing between 160 and 180 knots. But when 4 and 5 do that pass where they look like they're going to hit each other, they're probably doing about 180 knots each. So 360 knots closing speed, which is about just over 400 miles an hour, I think, 420, something like that.
That's fast enough, I would say. And I think we're very happy to keep your show where it is there. Brilliant. Well, look, it's been terrific having you on the show today. Just before you go, what sort of advice would you give to a young person who's thinking of training to be a pilot?
I think the ultimate thing is just go for it. If it's something you really want to do, you'll find a way to do it. So I decided at the age of about 5 I wanted to be a pilot. At 3 it was a little bit sort of astronomical. I wanted to be an astronaut, but I kind of got a little bit more sensible by the time I was 5. And everything in my life was just geared towards doing that. Although I always wanted to be a fighter pilot and join the RAF, I did actually briefly investigate a cadetship with British Airways, but that's not the route I wanted to go down. So whether you want to go down the military route or the civil route, what I would say is you'll have a lot of people knocking you, questioning whether you can do it. I'd say just go for it. And try and get as much flying exposure or aviation exposure as you can. I think the Air Cadets are a brilliant organisation. I was a member for 6 years myself. That's where I first went flying, and I got an RAF flying scholarship through the Air Cadets. So join the Air Cadets. It's a fabulous organisation. Get some flying experience and just find out as much as you can. Talk to people, go and see industry, go and see airlines, make use of contacts. And as I said, don't let anybody put you off.
Couldn't be better advice, and I'm totally with you on that, Sid. Absolutely. Air Cadets win every time, and if you can get in a glider at a very early age, you get to know the pure dynamics of an aircraft, and all you do from then on is get an engine and just go faster, just like you did. Well, Sid, it's been terrific having you on the show today, albeit rather different from what we're used to, but I hope you have a really safe winter season and you get training all completed to join us back at the Wales Air Show next year. Many thanks again.
You're welcome, George, and let's hope we actually get to fly at the air show next year, because it is definitely one of our favourites. So we'll see you next year.